Ran the whole way, ran the whole thing. Never ran away, never been afraid, never gonna break.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is a review of Creed 2. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Steven Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest film releases coming to a theater near you. We are 3 episodes deep into our crazy review marathon of 8 films. The night is still young, thank God. But yeah, we are here to talk about Creed 2, the sequel to both Creed 1 and Rocky 4. So, are you ready to do this, Steven?
Oh, I'm ready to rumble.
All right, so we are going to continue being ready to rumble while you guys get ready to rumble. And we're going to listen to the trailer for Creed 2, and then we're going to come back and give you a review.
We got this. You heard me?
In the ring, you got rules. Outside, you got nothing. Life hits you with all these cheap shots. People like me, we live in the past. You got people that need you now. You got everything to lose. This guy's got nothing to lose.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands. Listen to me, this guy is dangerous.
But you don't think I could beat him?
I got loyalty.
I was afraid I couldn't live up to these expectations.
I got loyalty inside my DNA.
You don't think you got your validation?
I got loyalty inside my DNA. I got toilet peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
I want to rewrite history.
Don't pretend this is about your father.
I was born like this, is born like this. Immaculate conception, I transform like this, perform like this. What shouts you a new weapon? I don't contemplate, I meditate. Then off your back. This that put the kids to bed. This that I got.
It may not seem like it now, but this is more than just a fight.
Loyalty. I got loyalty inside my DNA.
All right, so that was the trailer for Creed 2. So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was this boxing film called Rocky 4. And basically, in this film, this big
Oh, I thought it was Rocky IV where he gets cancer.
This is the IVs for the
Yeah,
chemo.
is it pronounced 4?
So, in Rocky 4... Apollo Creed is going to fight this giant man named Ivan Drago?
Ivan Drago.
And basically, over the course of this fight, Apollo Creed gets killed in the ring. Rocky's like, hey, my buddy.
I didn't know Tony Danza was in that movie.
But basically, he upset that his friend was killed, a friend who was at one point a villain in earlier films.
Yeah.
But is now the friend, has been killed, decides to avenge him, goes like, I don't know, it's like 1,000,000 rounds in that movie, but he just takes a licking and keeps
15,
on ticking.
I think, yeah, it's a long one.
Yeah, so he goes forever and eventually beats up Ivan Drago,
Yeah.
sends him home with his big Russian tail between his legs.
Yeah, ends the Cold War.
Ends the Cold War. And everything was fine and dandy. Well, smash cut to today, during the sequel to now at times, during the sequel to Creed 1, Adonis Creed is now become the heavyweight champion of the world, which is perfect timing for Ivan Drago to show up with his son, Drago.
Viktor
Drago.
Played by a Romanian, actually. A Romanian boxer named Florian Big Nasty Montenu.
2 of those words are not his actual name.
Yeah, they're in quotes. Florian.
But basically, Viktor Drago is now coming to challenge him to the heavyweight champion of the world. And basically, he has the choice to try to avenge his father's death. And Viktor has the chance to avenge the honor of his father, who lost and went home sad to Russia. And we watch sort of these two people getting ready to battle head-to-head for the heavyweight championship of the world. And it's a big, exciting boxing film that we both saw in Dolby super loud.
Oh, yeah. We rumbled.
Yeah. So, Stephen Miller, what did you think of Creed 2?
I thought this was a totally fine sequel. Not amazing, not great, but like fine, brought up to really awesome by the power of its leads. I think Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson are fucking awesome. They're royalty right now, clearly. They should be in everything. I think they're very captivating to watch.
Did you say royalty or loyalty?
I got royalty. I think they're awesome, and I think they like anchor the movie in a way that makes it enjoyable to watch. Even though I think filmmaking-wise, this is definitely a step down from the first movie. Like, what I loved about the first movie was the style that the fights were shot in. Ryan Coogler brought two like very different styles to the different major fights that he showed in that movie, but both were like visceral and intense, and you were in there. One felt at least like a single long take. Like it maybe wasn't, but it definitely was shot that way. The other felt like very, very, very intense, and you're just in the moment and you're feeling it. The best boxing scene of 2018 with Michael B. Jordan is still the fight in Black Panther, I think. These fight scenes are fine, but they're just shot way more traditionally, right? Like,
if I can quote Rocky in this film for a second, I mean, your stylized fighting scene is not going to work too well against this man. I mean, he's a brute force big guy. You got to do your own thing.
It was beautiful.
So I think you're forgetting, Stephen, that fighting a man this large and this strong requires a different fighting style, much like filming a man this large and this strong requires a different
if I can quote Ivan Drago in this movie, "Nyet." I disagree. Nothing but "nyet" over here.
Touche.
So, in this movie, at least, it just felt like it was all individual punches, right? Like powerful, forceful punches, and that was fine. Like there was still, it built intensity well. I think the last 25 minutes or so of this movie are really good and intense, and they do what the movie wanted you to feel, which is like feel the threat of Viktor Drago and feel how high the stakes are for this battle, and then feel just the physical power of boxing.
Also, if you go back and watch that original fight on YouTube, I remember watching that and being like, "Ooh, Ivan Drago's this big ass guy." When you go back and watch that and look at him, he was just tall. He was not big.
Not compared to this Florian guy.
Yeah, fucking, this kid is a fucking machine.
Did you know he had to lose weight for this role?
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. But yeah, so whatever. The filmmaking style didn't have that much to recommend it. The leads are still cool. The story is still good. It's just a little more one note. It felt a lot more like a Southpaw movie, right? Like dad is gonna reclaim. He like lost his way and is gonna use boxing as a way to reclaim his glory. I liked it. Like I had fun revisiting these characters. It wasn't as special as the beginning. Like none of the stakes felt the same to me as the first one. And maybe that's just a trick you can't duplicate, right? Like I said it in the last movie, I'll say it now, boxing is stupid. All of these movies only reiterate how dumb it is that these people keep doing this thing, but it's cool enough. Like, I was into it. And compared to the movie, I went directly from this movie to watch Robin Hood, which we'll talk to in a second. And I'm going to say this movie wins the training montage, hands down. Training in the desert in this movie is very, very cool. That is like a cool twist in the movie when we see like the hardcore training montage. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a simple movie, but it does what it wanted to do pretty well.
So, I mean, I've been hearing this a lot, right? Like, pretty good. Not as good as the original. I think Creed 2 is great.
Ooh.
Like, I think it's and it may be a combination of distance from Creed 1, and it may also just be that this film is so much better than it needed to or deserved to be based on the elevator pitch for this film, right? This film was pitched as what if Ivan Drago came back and his son fought him, right? Right?
Yeah.
Now I'm not actually doing Rocky.
I don't even know what you are
I'm just
now.
doing dumb guy, right? I'm doing dumb executive who's like, right, Creed 2? Yeah, we got this. Yeah. What if it's like 2 times as good? Yeah.
2 times as big as the original Drago.
But so like
Just Drago dropped the corner one.
Flynn. Anyways, yeah. So like the elevator pitch is like, hey, remember that like the Rocky that everybody knows? Like if you've only seen a few Rockies, you've seen Rocky 4, right? It's that everybody watched that. That was the one that was always playing on TV. Maybe it's just that I always saw it on like TNT around 4th of July.
Yeah, I feel like I saw Rocky 1 way more than any of those.
I mostly remember that. Like that's the one that I always remember. If I think back to any Rocky, it's always the one with the big Russian guy. I will break you, right?
Yeah.
And like the elevator pitch for this film is like, what if the son of that guy was back and also wanted to kill Adonis Creed, right? Like that's basically the premise for this film, and that just feels like it feels kind of cheap, and it feels kind of like it's just cash grabby, right? Like we got to continue it. We don't have a good story. Well, what if we just did Rocky 4 again, but with different people? Like that would be cool, right? And it just feels cheap. But what we got was a film that I did not expect, right? This is a story that is like this huge, it's sort of it's a redemption story for Ivan Drago, the man who was the monster of the other film. You find out about like, yeah, we all celebrated him losing, but then he went back to a country and a culture where that loss meant something.
He lost Ludmilla.
But like, it's a thing where it's like, no, it wasn't just him losing in that moment. This was like a fucking devastating loss that cost him everything. And he has spent all this time excommunicated from fucking his country, having to live in Ukraine. Like, it's, you suddenly go like, oh, now I see that you're not just coming back because you want to be pure evil. You're coming back because you're trying to make up for the last fucking 50 years. It's not 50 years, but whatever, however many years it's been, right? Like you're trying to earn your ways back to the place that you were kicked out of.
You want a better life for Zangief than you had for yourself. But you're Guile in this situation, I think.
Is that canon that Zangief is the son of Guile?
I don't know. He is now.
But yeah, like it's just one of those things where like I was like, oh shit, like this isn't just an evil manifestation of the next boxer that freaking Goku has to fight, right? This is like a thing where it's like a person who has lost everything. It's like we could watch this whole movie from the opposite side.
Yeah,
where,
they're mirror images of each other.
Yeah, and it's really impressive. Like I'm not afraid to say it. Ivan Drago made me cry at the end of this film. Like it's a thing where like you're like, oh shit, I care. And it's like on each side there are people who are like obviously keep forgetting the son's name. What's the character's name?
Adonis?
No, of the Drago side.
Oh, Viktor
Drago. So Viktor Drago is clearly the overpowering, like Viktor Drago's not scared of losing the fight, right? Viktor Drago's dad didn't die. I mean,
yeah,
he might as well have died according to Mother Russia. But like, it's a thing where it's like, he has nothing to lose in this state. Like even the fighter with nothing to lose is the most dangerous fighter in the... It's just one of those things where it's like, all of everything rests on Adonis and him both surviving, avenging his father. What in that scene where they have that like they both weigh each other and they get in each other's face, you're like, oh, he's fucking tiny.
Yeah.
You're like when you normally see Michael B. Jordan, you're like, damn, dude, that guy's fucking like ripped. He's scary. He's big. And then you see him standing next to Viktor, and you're just like, oh, one punch and you're just gone, right? You're just like you're like super scared for him, and it's like they're just the stakes are so high in this. There are family dynamics that are sort of also become stakes in this, like people's relationships to each other. Like, look, like you got to do like every relationship is put on hold because he is blinded by his need to do this one thing. And it's not just him. Like, he's no longer proving to himself what he wanted to. I mean, part of the whole problem is that he doesn't know what he's fighting for. Yeah. He just feels like he has to take this fight. And it's I think that this film delivers so much more complexity than what it sold to me when it put out that first trailer. I was excited because like, cool, I want this like rematch of my favorite Rocky film. But like, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I was not prepared for how deep the story was and what the moment to moment things meant to all those people. Like even Victor himself, he seems kind of just like a big dumb guy who's like, do what daddy say.
Yeah.
But like
he'd be a henchman named Tiny in some comic book.
But like, you realize that he is sad. Like he's sad. He's following what his father does because he has also been kicked out of his home country, right? And he does.
And in this universe, then the Soviet Union exists and it owns the Ukraine still. And Ukraine is like the gutter of the Soviet Union where they keep the bad boxers.
Yeah. Dog in the street is not.
Drug in the street worth two in the bush.
But yeah, it's just I didn't ever fix my street light. I've been gone for 20 years.
What, I need to write a manifesto now?
Get no respect.
I mean, take Adrian, please.
Take my wife to the grave. These jokes are so dumb. Anyways, but yeah, like I just found myself really compelled by the story. Also, yeah, like I was making a joke earlier about the quote from Rocky where he was saying like, hey, you can't go in there with your fighting style is awesome. You're like really quick and stuff, and you do all these things, and you're very like, I don't know, majestic,
nimble.
Nimble. But the problem is with a man who has this much reach on you, who is just this fucking strong, you can't do your normal thing. You have to change up your fighting style. And I think that like, I was joking when I compared the filmmaking change up to the fighting style change up. But for me, the rawness of it worked for me. Like those scenes where like, I was like clenched up, like watching the fights because I was
partially having a panic attack during this movie. Like, it built the tension very well.
Yeah, and it was, like, partially it's because I'm sitting under a fucking giant speaker, which isn't in the other theaters directly above me, but, like, I felt like those moments were really impactful, and there, especially in I'll just say the early parts of fighting Victor, you see that, like, he can land all these combos and like Victor doesn't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's just like, in fact, like when he first comes out in like round one, he comes out and he's just letting him punch him, right? Because he's like, go ahead. Like, I'm just going to like fill you out for a while and then I'm just going to swing really hard and we'll see what happens. And it's there, like, I really liked it. And I've always cared less about the filmmaking style than everyone else on this podcast, but like, I just was really brought into the film in a way that I didn't expect to. And for that, I walked out of this film being like, fuck yeah, that was a rad movie. And I really, really liked it. And I never once even thought to compare it to the original because I was just looking at it. I was comparing it to what was sold to me. And it rose above what I was expecting so much that it makes me really, really want to celebrate the film.
I can get that. I think that a thing that I didn't mind this is probably like the theme of these movies, but it was just interesting to think about is that like, in the movie, the stakes of this game are massive. Like, this match is really important. It is the legacy that will be tarnished forever. It's the thing that will keep haunting him if he doesn't do it. But there's this weird cyclical thing about boxing where, like, Drago is better than him. Like, Drago is rugged right now. He isn't well trained, really, right? Like, he's been fighting, like, brawls in Russia. He
does, like, underground fighting in Russia.
Yeah, he hasn't... That's why, like... There are fights in this movie that he disqualifies simply because he like is not well trained, like he doesn't know the right way to do it.
Yeah.
No matter what happens in this movie, 2 years from now he is the world champion forever, right? Like for all time, and like that's just kind of an interesting like the eternal nature of the threat, right? Like all you can do if you're Creed is like stave off this threat. And then maybe for a year you'll be fine until something else beats the shit out of you again. Yeah, it's just interesting, right? Because the stakes are as if this were permanent, but it is not permanent. This is just one thing he has to do to get out of a rut.
Yeah, and like that is the weird thing about boxing is like, or especially in like in MMA fights. I mean, I don't really know. I'm going to talk out of my ass right now because I don't really know enough about it, but I watched it. But it definitely seems like you just kind of take a bunch of fights, and at some point, like, the guy who's in charge of the league goes like, hey, you want to fight that guy? And you're like, sure. And then now you're the heavyweight champion of the world, right? It's just a thing where it's like, you just do whatever the next, like, this person hasn't fought in a while, fight him. And then once you've won a few, they're like, I mean, should we give him a shot at the title?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like one of those things where, like, he can achieve that, but you can't just rest on that and be like, yeah, I got first in the whatever Olympics.
Like, the next movie should be that Drago wants to fight him again, and the montage is him, like, binging and purging until he can get out of the weight class of heavyweight, so he can remain the, like, keep the title for the middleweight or whatever.
But, so that's the thing, though, is it does make you wonder, once again, talking out of my ass, but I feel like when you have the weight, I feel like you can cut weight and then compete in a lower weight class. But I feel once you get to the point where there's a challenge, I feel like they don't just go like, well, you get to keep it because you're too tiny now. It's like, well, no, you got to fight that guy because you have to defend your title. So you better either put on weight or just fight the dude who's much bigger than you. So it definitely seems like there is something about it that, like, because then why would anybody not? It's like when you're playing any fucking, like when you're playing a game like Oddball and Halo, right? Where there's always somebody who, like, grabs the ball, runs to the edge of the corner. As soon as you get there and he shoots you, he just jumps off and commits suicide. So the ball resets, he respawns, grabs it, runs to the other end of the level. Like, you could just do that forever. Like, I guess I'm too tiny to fight you. So
the question I would pose to you, much like Sly posed in this movie, is what is he fighting for? Like, that is the theme of this movie, and I don't know if I have an answer by the end.
He's fighting for himself.
That's who he is fighting for.
Oh, what is he fighting for?
Like, why is he taking the fight? Like it's such a thematically. I know why Drago is fighting.
Yeah,
that is clear. He has, like, everything to gain, right? And
he must break him.
Yeah, he's got to break him. Why is Adonis
we have
fighting?
No Kit Kat bar in.
Because in these movies, because if I remember right from the first movie, he did not know his father at all. He is not, like, he is in the direct lineage of Apollo Creed, but he is not in the, quote, canonical Creed family, right? He was, like, he I think his mom was, like, Creed's mistress or something like that, right? Like, who lived out in L.A. Am I forgetting all this?
I don't remember,
honestly. I think the canon in the first movie is that, like, it's not like he has grown up under the shadow of his father in that meaningful way. And in this movie, it kind of feels like Apollo is everything, and, like, avenging his dad is everything, and this has haunted him his whole life. And that doesn't seem to be the answer of why he should fight. I just don't thematically know why he does, even though it is, like, a big, glorious, resounding, you got to do this, you got to do this. I just didn't totally get.
Well, I think the idea is that in all the other cases, he was fighting for an idea that wasn't simply because he wanted it. Like, it was, I need to defend my father, who I didn't know. I need to do this one thing. I need to prove to other people that blah, 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 blah. And in the end, he's realizing that, like, he's not fighting to prove anything to anybody else other than to himself.
I will say, I'm going to spoil this part. I don't care. There's a scene where Michael B. Jordan proposes to Tessa Thompson. That was fucking great. They just have so much chemistry. I love them so much on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Cool. Any last thoughts about this film?
Nope. It was cool.
Cool. Well, we will get to our verdicts then. Stephen Miller, if you're going to give this a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or must avoid, what would you get?
It's recommend with a caveat. Again, I think it does a fine job. It isn't awesome like the first movie was. I think it was just pretty good. The leads are great. I want Michael B. Jordan to be in everything now. Tessa Thompson should keep, like, getting better and better roles. I think she's cool too. The fight scenes are fine. It builds tension fine. It just doesn't. It isn't culminating in something the way that the first movie just felt so, like, urgent and visceral. This movie just felt more like a classic boxing movie updated to 2018, which is fine. It's fun to watch people beat the shit out of each other. So go see it. Just don't expect it to be, like, the same kind of fire that it was the first time around.
Yeah. Well, you know, some people say, like, if they ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I feel about the classic nature of this film. I think it's a must-see for me. It didn't have to go, like, the elevator pitch of this film is enough to justify it being made from the standpoint of like fans wanting to see this fight happen, much like the people in the real world, we watching want to see him fight this. I think the way these fights play out over the course of the film, all of them in the film, are an interesting way to keep things going, especially considering like the opening shot of most of these trailers.
Yeah.
The scene that plays there, it was kind of like, how are they going to do this? And then I was like, I got you. I like this. So I was really happy with what I got from this film. And as I said, Ivan Drago made me cry at the end of this film. So
Nice.
take that for what it may be. But yeah.
If it ain't a street light, don't fix it.
Or if it is a street light, don't fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll bring us to the end of our review of Creed 2. Stephen Miller, where can people find you throughout the week?
If people want to find me, they can go to twitter.com. They can go to twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com. Or join my Patreon, where you can pay me to not try to do a Sly Stallone impression ever again.
Patreon, what was that? I mean, my day was
Patreon!
Yo, Patreon! It's so dumb. All right, people can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at SpoilerWarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do so on Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want the episodes to go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning or like us at facebook.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from the soundtrack to Creed 2, so hopefully you're enjoying that. And we are going to take off because the bell has just rung. We're going to return to our corners, take a bunch of water into our mouth, swish it around, spit it out, tell somebody I got this, and then go back in to bring you a review of Robin Hood.
Yeah.
So we will see you in just a moment. Peace.
Bye.
I would go to war